All right, it worked this time. For some reason it didn't let me do it last time. I can't sleep, so I'm going to go ahead and do another few chapters of Semper Die. Let's see how far we get. Um, it's pretty late here, and my kids might wake up, so if I have to cut the feed suddenly, I'm sorry. I'll try to pick up from where I was. Chapter 11 Left Behind. In therapy, shrinks tell you that there are different levels of anger. There's irritated. Play a video game too long and you'll annoy your girl until she glares at you and huffs out her breath. It's like a rock in your emotional shoe. It could grow and become more serious, or you could just dump the rock out. Then there's mad. That's bar fight level. Some idiot disses your team, your squad, your core. It's a brief flare up that passes with a good wind, and you can actually wind up friends with the guy whose face you were grinding to paste. There's anger, which lasts a while, and whatever injustice caused it needs to be handled. But I didn't feel any of those. I felt something about 50 steps deeper down. Watching that chopper take off, seeing Thompson's smug face as my Marines bled all over the concrete, and hearing the bestial death cry of the world behind me activated the bedrock of hell sunk deep in my soul. Rage. Black, hot, and violent, clenched my hands so tightly around my rifle grip that I thought I cracked the handle. The Z's howled, spilling out onto the pad. They dashed for us, loping like savanna predators with hands outstretched and bloody mouths gaping. They came for us with hunger in their rotten guts. That's okay. That's how I came for them. I hit the first one so hard I broke its skull with the butt of my rifle. The liquid slop on its head splattered onto the concrete. I stepped forward then, right into the middle of them. I wasn't running anymore. The beast was loose, and I roared with it as I hurled zombies away with sheer rage. Rifles cracked around me, Z's dropped left and right, and I could hear Gunny Hudson shouting something, but it was all too distant around the roaring in my ears. Hands with ragged fingernails tried to drag me down, but I shouldered and shoved them back. Z's are strong, something about their lower brain functions being in charge. But that's where I was too, and I was bigger than them. I punched and swung my rifle. Z's flew back from me, scrabbling at the deck to regain their feet. I hit a dead nurse in the jaw so hard it crumpled the bone in her face. I Spartan kicked a Zulu and Navy camis, and it hit the edge of the building and toppled off. I whirled around and threw another 4 of them to the deck, yowling in a pale imitation of the fury gripping me. I hammered them. I punched, kicked, elbowed, stomped, and ripped them. My Marines had been betrayed and murdered by monsters that looked like humans, and these things were going to supply the first of many down payments on that debt. I took it from them in blood and bone, dropping them in broken heaps on the helipad. I consecrated the fallen third with showers of zombie gore. There were too many of them. The analytical part of my brain knew that, but it had no sway on what decisions I made. I just stepped into them. The howling of the Z's was no match for the howling in my skull. I would have died there. I wanted to die there. Gunny Hudson saved me. Marines, now! Rifles barked behind me. The Zulus just in front of me dropped or staggered backward. Then the frags exploded. Black blood and body parts showered over me, and I stumbled from the blasts. Then Gunny Hudson's arm wrapped around my throat, and I choked at the sudden, crushing pressure. He hauled me toward the low wall on the roof, not letting me regain my balance. I thrashed in his grip, reaching for the Z's even as they clawed for me. The man did not warn me or even hesitate. He just threw me off the roof. I shouted in panicked shock as I hurtled toward the ground, but then my pack strap snatched me by the shoulders about 3 yards from impact. I spun in the air and smashed into the side of the hospital, dazing me. Beside me, Marines rappelled or slid down the side of the building. Cut him down! Hudson roared, and something heavy smashed into my back, driving the wind from my lungs. Sorry, Sergeant. Don't kill me, please, Dakota said. Something snapped above me. The tension in my shoulders vanished, and I fell again. This time, I hit the ground with Dakota on my back, and I just managed to tighten my core before the air blasted out of my lungs again. Move it, Alpha! Hudson barked, and I staggered to my feet. The fall and the impact had shocked the rage out of me, and I followed Hudson's orders on instinct, my mind reeling. Something smashed on the ground next to me with a wet crunch. I jerked away from it and saw a broken Z in a doctor's coat snarling at me, trying to reach for me with its shattered limbs. Its red eyes blazed with unreasoning hate, and it howled like a demon. All around us, Z's hit the ground. They were hurling themselves from the roof after us, and now they thrashed on the ground with broken legs, at least the ones that didn't shatter their own skulls. They crawled toward us still, snarling and growling hungrily. Let's go, let's go! Ferreira shouted, and his M249 spat a burst of 5.56 up at the roof. I ran, passing Furry as he leaned into his weapon. I'm up. They see me. I'm down. I twisted at the end of the ditty, falling to a knee and bringing my rifle up. I saw what he was shooting at. On the roof, Marshall and Turnbow struggled with the Z's. They hadn't made it off. They were pinned against the low wall of the roof, and the baying undead had their fingers hooked in the mollywebbing of their packs, jaws buried in their necks. Ferreira fired again, and Turnbow slumped out of sight with a spurt of blood. Agony flushed through my system, but I sighted in and fired. Marshall's head kicked to the side, and he disappeared. The rage threatened to surge up again, but Hudson stuck his face in mine. Double time, Sergeant! He roared, the sheer volume and intensity of the order snapping me out of it. The combination of his drill instructor voice and his use of my rank reset me like a frickin' printer. Alpha, on me! I shouted, and the survivors of Alpha Squad turned to run after me. Monday, July 4th, 1834. Night fell. We jogged west along the side of some road called Porter, the howl of Zulus fading behind us. The last bit of the sun dipped below the horizon. We followed Gunny, our boots pounding the pavement in unison like we were on a fun run. We didn't talk, didn't joke, didn't even look at each other. Each Marine felt the pain of losing a brother, the shame of not being enough. The endless rerun played in our heads as we tried to figure out what we could have done differently. I took stock as we ran. We'd lost 3rd Fire Team again, along with Garrett, Marshall, and Turnbow. Morano's betrayal and the death of Dietrich had cut our combat effectiveness in half. We were down to me, Gunny, Sanchez, Ferreira, Dakota, Dominguez, and Sloan. I didn't even want to move anymore. Gunny Hudson, though, was like a machine. The man looked like an accountant, but he did not seem to tire, and he pushed us hard. Sanchez was starting to gasp from humping the saw and ammo on this run, and it wasn't some weak female thing. I was feeling it too. We had been in 2 combat engagements today, and our systems were crashing. In here, Gunny ordered, and he turned onto Beastly Drive. I saw the sign outside the building there. Data Management Services. Comms, I gasped, and Gunny nodded, his chest heaving. We crowded around the door. Locked, Sergeant, Dakota said. It was a controlled access door. Needed a CAC with the proper authorizations loaded on it. Made sense for a building marked data management. Let me try, said Gunny, and we stepped aside. He fished a card out of his breast pocket and held it to the scanner. It went green, and the lock on the door clicked open. Inside, Gunny said, and we followed him in. The door locked behind us. Where'd you get the key card, Gunny? Ferreira asked. Figured the doc's team would have a skeleton key to the site, so I swiped it when we were in the chopper on the way in. We stared at him. Ferreira said it for us. You pickpocketed a Blackwater Merc team? He shrugged. I was a Lance once, too. Sweep the building, I said. We don't know what's in here. Try to stay frosty for another 2 minutes. The squad, what was left of it, muttered a response. Gunny swiped us through the door separating the lobby from the rest of the building, and we moved through. It's still a TS facility, and it doesn't contribute much to this story, so I'm not describing it to you. Long story short, the building was clear, the exits and entrance were all secure, so we holed up in a room filled with servers and slumped to the floor. MREs, Gunny said, as Ferreira leaned against his pack and closed his eyes. Calories first, then sleep. We got more to do tomorrow. Furry whined for a second, but he dug into his pack and came out with vegetable lasagna. He grimaced as he looked at it. I thought this was a war crime under the Geneva Convention. Sanchez grunted. Convention wasn't a thing yet when that one was made. Calories, Gunny repeated. Didn't say food. Hey, Dakota, trade ya? Nah, dog. I value my bowel movements too much. I could hear the desperation in their voices. They were trying to normalize, but I just couldn't. I got first watch, I said roughly. I was tired, bone tired, and I still had to process losing 11 Marines in one day. Shut up, eat your chow, and rack out. Alpha glanced at me. I could feel their eyes on me, but I turned my back on them and dug my stupid spork into a cold pack of tortellini. Hot or cold, ash tasted the same. I leaned back on my pack, eyes on the door, and ate food I didn't deserve. All I could hear now was the sound of the server's hum and Ferreira's snoring. Kid was going to need a CPAP when he got out. When he got out. Like any of us would. I lay on the floor, rifle across my body, my hands still in the grip. I was looking at the door, but I wasn't seeing it. Over and over, the scenes replayed in my head. The Humvee getting swarmed. Doc ripping at Gutierrez's throat. Harrison crawling towards me, blood pumping out of the hole in his gut. Morano's mildly interested expression, like she was watching a janitor sweep around her desk. Thompson's smirk. My Marines were dead. I'd lost Marines before, but not the bulk of an entire squad in a single day. I'd never lost that many. Things hadn't been that bad in Fallujah, for crying out loud, and half of them had died on our home turf, in line of sight of a freaking subway. What did I do wrong? I was so lost in my thoughts. I jumped when Gunny slid down next to me. Sergeant, he said quietly. I nodded and looked away. I knew what was coming, and tears were stinging my eyes already. Gunny. I swiped up my eyes. You here to tell me to sleep? That it wasn't my fault? That I couldn't do anything to save them? Gunny sighed and leaned back against his pack. You'd say that to them, right? We looked over at the lower enlisted. First-term Marines, all of them. Lance Corporal Dakota, gripping his rifle even as he slept, just as they taught him in boot camp. Sanchez, with her abrasive feminism and Latina temper, twitching and crying in her sleep. Sloan, silent tears tracking down his face as he curled into a corner. Ferreira, snoring away like a buzzsaw as if he didn't have a care in the world. Dominguez, his fists clenching and unclenching as his nightmares took him. Losing Marines sucks, Alex, Hudson said, using my first name for the first time. There's no fixing that. There are no words that make it all better. As if you can slap a Band-Aid on it, or your mom could just kiss the pain away. He met my eyes. The death of a Marine is a sacred thing, and we need to take a minute to treat it as such. They volunteered for this. These kids take the worst the world can throw at them, and they leave it a better place when they go. Albeit with more dicks on the porta-johns. I gasped a laugh unexpectedly, and tears leaked from my eyes. Gunny grinned and let his head fall back in his pack. You can't take them anywhere, Gunny said. Yet they're the greatest human beings that have ever lived. Freaks, whores, and revolutionaries, all of them, I said. Geniuses and morons, Gunny responded, and we chuckled together on the floor. We sat in silence a minute. Then he put a hand on my arm. Love your Marines, he said quietly. The living and the dead. Remember them both, but don't let one group suffer at the expense of the other. That's all I wanted to say. I choked in a huge, shuddering breath. Aye, Gunny, I said. He patted me once, then withdrew his hand. Get some sleep, Sergeant, he said. We're doing it again tomorrow. Chapter 12. Heirs of Glory. Tuesday, July 5th, 0730. We need to make a decision, Gunny Hudson said, on our next step. The 7 of us sat in the server room, digging into MREs for the calories. Water bottles and hydration packs had already been filled from the sinks. Sanchez hesitated, her spork halfway to her mouth from her packet of square-shaped beef-inspired patty. She and the rest of Alpha glanced at me. We, Gunny? Sanchez asked. Hudson nodded. We're off orders now. If we, he gestured to himself and me, are going to continue to put you in harm's way, you need to have some input on that. Besides, I said, after lengthy deliberation, the Gunny and I have concluded that you're either geniuses or morons. Ferreira chuckled and leaned back. Dominguez eyed him. Well, that's the closest Furry's ever been to being called a genius. It's one of two, Dom. 50-50 shot. Sloan looked at me, his expression somber. What are the options, Sergeant? I pulled out my phone. Check it out. Yesterday, no one could get through to family, right? Right, Dakota said. The towers were slammed. I was counting on him as our comms guy to be the most informed. But when we flew over DC, how many brand new Zs did we see crawling around? Thousands, Sloan said. I pointed at him. Exactly. And how many of them do you think are still using their phones? Dakota's head came up. I'm picking up what you're putting down, Sergeant. You think the burden on the cell towers is lower now? I nodded. So far, we've seen nothing to indicate that the Zs care about cell towers at all, so the physical network should still be up. Now, unless the whole net has crashed and there's no one left to reset it, it should still be possible to make a call out of here and let Fob Delta know what happened with us. Ferreira already had his phone out and was looking at it with a funny look in his face. He twisted the phone around to show me. No signal, he complained. Dakota sighed. Yeah, man, you're not going to get a signal in here. Data management is basically a bunker for signals. You can't get any in or out unless you're hardwired. And, he said, glancing around at us, we're technically committing felonies by even having our phones in here. Yay, Sanchez said. Not my first, Ferreira said with a grin, and ducked as Sanchez threw a wrapper at him. Dominguez held up a hand. I pointed at him. You want us to leave this building and establish contact with command? Gunny answered for me. Correct, Lance Corporal. We need updated orders. I'm pretty sure that Fob Delta no longer exists and is packed up and moved. Not only that, he looked at me meaningfully. I took up the slack. Not only that, but it's pretty clear that Morano and her murdering trash are in tight with the suits in charge. Even if we reported her, we'd probably just get another Black Ops team after us. Sloan gritted his teeth. He'd lost Marshall from his fire team, and it was still chewing him up inside. I looked each Marine in the eye. So we gotta play this smart. Even if you have a signal, you can't use your phone. Secret squirrels have all kinds of ways of tracking that crap, so no more Pokemon Go, furry. He put a hand over his heart. I'll be quiet as a Pidgey in tall grass. Good, I think. I pointed at the map on the wall. It had pins in it, probably locations for servers and data centers that these techs serviced. We need to travel south to get back to Fob Delta, if that's where we're going. However, Gunny and I talked, and we think we know what command will do. I pointed up and down the Chesapeake Bay. There's a Navy deployment in Norfolk with a battalion of deployment-ready Marines. They were stuck on ship during Z-Day, so there's some serious firepower there. The way Gunny and I figure, they're going to sail up the bay and establish a fallback point for civilians to escape. The best probable location is here. I circled Kent Island with my finger. It was a large island to the east of D.C., situated between the mainland of Maryland and that little arm that hung down. There's only 2 bridges that access the island. A battalion of Marines can easily hold those bridges open, so civilians can evacuate to Kent and get ferried out to safety. Hold up, Dakota said, his hand on his chin as he squinted at the island on the map. You want to try to get there? I took a deep breath. That is our most likely route, yes. And we can't call for an evac, Sloan said slowly, because then the goon squad is going to show up. Also correct. I knew what they were looking at. Between us and Kent Island was the entirety of Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. There's probably over 1,000,000 Zs between us and the rest of the Corps, Gunny said quietly, in infested urban environments that make Fallujah look like a cakewalk. That's why we're talking. The Marines sat in silence, staring at the map. Sanchez kept glancing at the others, trying to get a read off them. Dakota fidgeted with a boot band in his hand. Ferreira kept smiling and shaking his head as if the situation kept getting funnier. Sloan and Dom were silent, eyes locked into the map, trying to figure it out. Dakota, I prompted. He shook his head. It's a long walk, Sergeant. We going to secure transport? If we can, I said. But the road's likely jammed with civilian vehicles, abandoned as the Z's advanced. If we can find something off-road, we might use that. It's got to be armored, Dom said quietly. Don't want to go out like Doc and the rest of 3rd. I grimaced, hearing the pain in that admission. It was not a good way to die. Sanchez? She looked from me to the others. I'm sticking with my Marines, Sergeant. Wherever you guys go, I'm going. Ferreira picked up his head. Hear that? Sanchez is coming to the strip club with me. Sanchez grinned nastily at him. I'm not into girly boys like you. Ferreira put a hand to his heart as if wounded. You so don't get me. I rolled my eyes. Dom. The kid shrugged. As long as we stay quiet, Washington, D.C. shouldn't be a problem. Sloan? He was the one that concerned me. His silence was getting heavy, and I recognized the darkness building in him. It was the blackness, the monster within that made veteran Marines such fantastic killers. But its last victim was always the Marine himself. Is going home an option? He asked quietly. The rest of the room went silent. But the Marines weren't looking at him. They were looking at me and Gunny. Gunny tapped his fist against the ground. There it is. The question you all wanted to ask, and only Sloan had the balls to do it. Furry nodded at Sloan. Rah, Corporal. Sloan held up his hands. Look, I'm not asking to leave. I just want to know the options here. Can I just take my Marines home and not go through, what'd you call it, Washington, D.C.? Is that an option? Gunny looked from Marine to Marine. His tone was dead serious. Do you want to? The Marines looked struck by that. They had to wrestle with it. Dakota looked like he was physically chewing on it in his mouth. Finally, the comms guy shook his head. Nah, don't like it. Sanchez wrinkled her nose. Yeah, it sounds weird. Marines leaving? I don't think so. Ferreira tapped the saw across his lap. I jizzed 6 times in my camis yesterday firing this thing. Grins and groans broke out around the group. Furry grinned for a second, then went serious. But Marines, like, we've never run, right? We don't. Ever. Like, in Chosen, when we were surrounded by Chi-Coms, we saved the army and advanced in a different direction. Or in Bella Wood. Or in Chan. Fallujah, Gunny said quietly. Second time he'd brought it up. He'd probably lost brothers there. That's right. We do some Dan Daly, Chesty Polar type crime and make victory happen. All I'm saying is, Ferreira went on, is that when the world looks like it's falling apart, the Marines step up. We don't go home. Not till all the Marines go home. We say no, we sharpen our freaking knives, and we rip some guts out of the bad guys. He went silent. We all stared at him. Holy crap, Furry, Sanchez said. I didn't know you knew that many words. It was beautiful, Dominguez put in. Put tears in my eyes, Dakota said. Furry slouched down. Y'all can shut up. That was from the heart. Sloan finally broke his serious demeanor and patted Ferreira on the shoulder. That was good, man. It's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to do any stupid hero crap. He locked eyes with me. Not unless we're all doing it. I looked from Marine to Marine. We agreed then? We're punching through ZC? Right through its dick, Ferreira said, and the bunker erupted in oorahs and battle cries. The plan for getting out of the building was simple. Dom had observed that the Z's liked noise. We also figured there might be some stragglers in the streets, waiting to tar pit us down so their buddies could grab us. The particular ingenuity of E3s kicked in. Dakota found a battery-operated alarm clock. After a couple of minutes of jerry-rigging, the Marines had it wrapped in bubble wrap like a hamster ball. He had it set to go off 1 minute past its current time, opened the back door to the data facility, and chucked it, aiming away from our planned route of egress. We held our breaths, listening, till we heard the distinct beep 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 of the alarm. Go, I said, and we hustled out single file, running south. Behind us, the howl started, but we left it behind. Transit through the southern part of Dietrich proved smooth. All Zulus in the area had been drawn by the choppers and firefights the day before, though we kept Sanchez's warning in mind about potential strapped ones. There was an abandoned HMMWV at the southern gate, but Gunny waved us off it. Look at the road, he said. Sure enough, cars filled it edge to edge, spilling over onto sidewalks, medians, and emergency lanes. Off-roading won't work either, Ferreira muttered. It's freaking Maryland. Forest as far as the eye could see. We wouldn't be able to get the Vic anywhere. I sighed. Strip it, and let's go. We found a box of 5.56 and added it to our stash. Engagements the day before had burned through about half our supply, but as long as we stayed quiet, I didn't anticipate problems with ammo. You know, Sloan said as we trudged along the road, we probably don't need rounds as heavy as 5.56. I grunted as I stepped over a guardrail. How's that? He shrugged. 9 mil or 22 would do the same damage to a rotten Z. 5.56 is overkill and way heavier to carry. When we get back, I said, breathing hard and swearing in the privacy of my mind where Gunny probably couldn't hear me, I'll let the colonel know. That's good thinking, Marine, Gunny said. He was walking point just ahead. We weren't spaced out since Zulus didn't seem to be using grenades or LMGs yet, and Gunny wanted us tight just in case we had to duck down and hide. You keep that up, he went on. That active mindset is how your generation will stay alive in a world like this. Sloan ducked his head, unused to the praise. I didn't blame him. The Corps wasn't exactly high on positive reinforcement. You hear that, Furry? Sanchez said. Active mind. Guess you're out. Thank you, Sanchez, for your incisive yet unhelpful comments. How about you shut it before some frickin' zombie finds us and chows down? Nah, they don't want us, Dakota said. They eat brains. If we had any, we'd be in the Air Force right now. Dominguez chuckled. I hear that. We stuck to route march rhythm. 15 minutes walking, 10 minutes resting and drinking water. It made a sorry sight, the 7 of us marching through the ruins of America. The streets and sidewalks were now empty, eerie and littered with debris. No cars rushed through intersections, giving that constant background noise of moving air. Cracked windows and graffiti-covered buildings stood as haunting remnants of a society annihilated, broken to its knees in a single stroke and shot in the back of the head. We tried to raid a Burger King, figuring something in there still had to be good. The acrid reek of smoke and fry oil drove us back. Someone had left the fryers on when the collapse hit, and fire had gutted the place. The only thing we could hear in the distance was the chatter of automatic weapons fire. So faint, you thought you imagined it. The howl of the undead. Periodically, jet fighters streaked overhead, leaving contrails that crisscrossed. We knew where they were headed. The nation's capital, a cool million potential Zs, lay that way. We were starting to see Zulus now, 1s and 2s scattered across our path. They stumbled slowly on a path only they knew, their heads twitching back and forth. As soon as we saw the first one, Gunny clenched a fist and we melted into the shadow of a nearby house. The zombie didn't see us. It was too busy running its hand over a car as it stumbled along. What's the play, Gunny? Sanchez asked, massaging her shoulder. She was clearly aching from carrying the saw around all day, but our Latina fireball wouldn't complain. Well, not about that, anyway. Dominguez interrupted before Gunny could say anything. Can I try something? Hudson glanced at him, his eyes sharp, but he nodded. Dom crouched down and skittered out into the street in full view of the Z. I started and shouldered my rifle, but Gunny put a hand in my chest and a finger to his lips. Dominguez stayed in the middle of the street, his rifle aimed directly at his new friend. The Z kept staggering forward, emitting a low, guttural exhale as it did. I squinted. Why can't it see him? The Lance Corporal took a loose chunk of asphalt from the road, tossed it once in his palm, then sidearmed it down the street past the Z. Immediately, it burst to life. Its head snapped around to follow the projectile, and it lurched forward with a snarl. After a few steps, it staggered to a halt, its head tracking around, an odd cant to it. Dom scurried back. You guys saw that? He asked unnecessarily. Furry squatted, his dark eyes thoughtful as he watched the Zulu stumbling around. Then he snapped his fingers. Sanchez smacked him for the noise, and he looked contrite, but he said, It's reacting to noise and motion. Something's wrong with their eyes, Sergeant. Have we seen one of them blink yet? Dakota asked, and we glanced at him. I mean, we've kind of had other stuff on our minds, Sloan deadpanned. Yeah, Dak's over here staring deep into their eyes, Furry said. No, he's right, I said, chewing memories over in my head. Their eyes go red and crazed, wide as they can get. I bet they dry out. Yeah, Sanchez said. Your eyes go blurry if you don't blink. You can't focus right. Dakota looked up. That's why we're seeing them in groups usually. They're all moving to the same sounds. Gunny narrowed his eyes. That one's alone, he said. Dakota nodded. Yeah, but we also got jets and choppers crossing the sky. Not to mention whatever animals and pets are still around. There's a lot of audio pollution in an urban environment, and I bet these things are getting separated as they try to follow whatever they're hearing. The squad fell silent as we digested that news. All right, Gunny said after a minute. Our camis are probably actually helping us then. Furry sniggered. For once, he said. Prioritize concealment, not cover, I said slowly. If we move quietly, they won't see us. Gunny nodded. I could see his mind working through the problem. Monkey bombs, he said. I stared at him, but Sanchez and Dominguez both grinned. Good call, Gunny, Sanchez said. Looks like the game devs knew what they were talking about. I do not, I put in. What the hell is a monkey bomb? Sergeant, Gunny warned, and I acknowledged my slip-up with a hand. Dom gestured. In Nazi Zombies on COD, you can get a special grenade called a monkey bomb. It's a little symbol monkey that draws all the zombies to it for a few seconds before it blows up. I caught on. Noisemakers, I said. Like that alarm trick Dakota pulled. Ferreira tapped his saw. Yeah, you know, whenever I'm running from First Sergeant. How often is that? Sanchez interrupted. He pointed at her. Not your business. Anyway, ignore when he calls out, Hey, Marine. Your name ain't Marine. Then walk to the nearest building and turn the corner to, break line of sight. Then freaking book it. First Sergeant's 45 years old and busy. He's not chasing you. Gunny grinned. Lance criminal, he said, shaking his head. Yeah, you know it, Gunny. But we can use that here. Break line of sight with these things and toss your monkey bomb the other way. Might be a way to lose a crowd. I like it, Gunny said. Good thinking, Marines. He looked each one in the eye, keeping his voice low. Our number one priority right now is to stay alive long enough to link up with other Marines. No stupid decisions, no heroics, and absolutely no gunfire unless we're good and screwed. We find our brothers and get there alive. We've lost too many already. We nodded. Sounded good. It was a strategy, and we could follow a strategy. Stay quiet, stay hidden, stay alive. We could do that. Then we heard the scream. Chapter 13. Purpose. It shattered the quiet of the street, a shriek knifing through the silence. Our Zulu buddy snapped around and started running, the howl rising from its chest in a hoarse wail. Others followed, lifting from the neighborhood around us. We gripped our weapons, frozen. Gunny had a hand out, palm down, but he was looking around. We heard a man's voice. Run, Jenny! Run for it! A booming shot rang out. Shotgun. Another scream. Girl. Young. Keep running! Get inside! The howl was everywhere now. Alpha looked at me, their eyes wide, questioning. My knuckles cracked on my rifle grip. The shift in our demeanor after that initial shock was instant and palpable. To this day, I cannot think of it without a chill running down my spine. We had just finished deciding to survive. Then we heard the call. Sanchez and Furry hefted their saws simultaneously, just as Dakota, Dom, and I twisted toward the yelling. Our rifles shouldered, our visions sharpened, and Alpha Squad charged out from cover like the warriors we were to bring second death. A crowd of Z's clawed at the doors and windows of a house down the street. More runners loped their way towards it. Another shotgun blast boomed, kicking a Zulu back from the window to thrash on the ground. We heard crying and shouts. Weapons free. Go loud and proud. Get their attention, Gunny snarled as we ran. We want them on us. M4s only. Save the squad weapons for when the crowd turns. Hoorah, Gunny! We bellowed, loud as we could. I skidded to a knee as Dakota, Sloan, and Dom pounded past me. I got my sight picture, and I snapped off a shot that stripped a Z's teeth from its gums before blowing its filthy head off its neck. United States Marines! Ferreira bellowed, his Italian-American lungs blasting his voice through the neighborhood. Hold fire and get down! The noise got their attention. The entire Zulu tribe swiveled to see the 7 of us charging them, and with a screech, they swarmed for us. I fired, tracked another one, fired again to hit its buddy. Just outside my firing lane, Sloan and Dakota had slowed to a walk, firing 1 shot a second. Dom charged into the lead Z, halting its charge dead with a butt stroke to its face. His K-bar flashed and buried under its chin, and the thing dropped like a marionette with its strings cut. He ducked the arms of the next one, swept its legs out from under it with some kind of karate move, and fired his M4 one-handed into its face. Z's pitched over backward or crashed to the ground, brains blasted out of their skulls. I heard the chatter of a 249, and I swiveled to see Sanchez chewing through a pack of 5 that emerged from behind the next house over. Get some Marines! I roared, as undead skulls popped like black blisters. Hoorah! They shouted back. Ahead, Sloan and Gunny punched through the rapidly diminishing crowd, firing constantly. They reached the broken window, where Gunny grabbed a Z by the scruff of its neck and hurled it back, ending it with a single blast from his shotgun. U.S. Marines! U.S. Marines! He bellowed into the house. Then he and Sloan burst through the door. Gunshots rang out inside. Meanwhile, the last 4 Zs toppled to the ground, death rattles hissing from their throats, and I glanced at my Marines to take stock. All of us were breathing hard through our mouths, each bite of air sawing through our bared teeth. Furry kicked one on the ground and put another burst into its skull for good measure. Dom's eyes were black and hard. The killer fully emerged from its lair, and even Dakota, the one we thought of as our friendly nerd, kept tracking his weapon about, looking for another one to drop. Stand down, Marines, I growled, trying to get my own aggression in check. Eyes up. Erra, said Sanchez, her gaze sweeping around the neighborhood on the barrel of her saw. Clear! Gunny shouted from inside. Civilians coming out! Stand by for first aid! A man, woman, and 2 teen girls stumbled out of the house, covered by Gunny and Sloan. The woman sobbed into the man's shoulder, who hefted a hunting shotgun in one hand and held her with the other. Thank you, the woman gasped. Oh, thank you. I thought we were done for, the man said, his eyes wide. He was wearing mechanic's overalls with the name Tyler stitched in. I moved to Hudson. Got to displace Gunny. There's no way that didn't get heard. He nodded. Lance Corporal Sanchez and Ferreira, flank the civilians. Corporal Sloan, take point. Dominguez, rear watch. We're moving. Rah, Gunny, the squad chorused, and we shifted the civilians off the street. The woman kept crying and her daughters with her, so I snapped my fingers at them. Hey, enough of that. These things track by sound, so lock it up. They sniffled and nodded. Luckily, we seemed to have cleared out the local infestation. No other Zs emerged from the housing complex or woods. About a half-mile away, we found a garage with the door slanted open. After a quick noise check and visual sweep, we moved inside the structure and pulled the door down. Gunny turned to Tyler. Sir? The man wiped tears away from his eyes with his sleeve. Tyler Garman. I can't thank you soldiers enough. We've been holed up in there since yesterday. The term soldier raised some hackles, but as usual, we didn't let it show on our faces. What was going on? Gunny asked. What drew them to you? Tyler shook his head. We ran out of food. We were supposed to go to a friend's for grilling, and grocery day was supposed to be today. He pointed at one of his daughters, a lanky 16-year-old. Jenny runs track in school, so we figured when they were gone, we sent her to find out something to eat. Jenny sniffed. Yeah, I tripped on a sprinkler in the yard and broke a stick. Gunny looked at all of them. So what's your plan? My Marines and I have to reconnect with our unit. Tyler pulled his backpack off and showed us a radio. FEMA has been broadcasting, he said. They're telling us to stay put if we can. They're setting up an evacuation point on Kent Island and are going to try to get us out that way. I grinned at Gunny. Called it. Tyler looked at us. Can you take us with you? Gunny shook his head. Negative, sir. We're heading through the outskirts of D.C. He raised his eyebrows at Tyler's family. Don't think that's the right place to take your family. Yeah. Yeah, okay, Tyler said. So, we'll just stay here then? Furry, I said. My Italian-American popped his head up. Jimmy the door to the house and get these folks inside. Dak and Sloan cover him and sweep it when he's open. Furry put a hand to his chest. I am wounded that you assume I can pick a lock, Sergeant. I glanced at him. You're from Boston, right? Look, the fact that I can do it doesn't excuse your assumption. Just shut up and do mafia things. 20 minutes later, the Garmin family was holed up in their new digs with a fully stocked pantry. Look, Gunny said, you got a second floor here. Stay on it. If you get in trouble or too many Z's are nosing around, head for the garage. Put a stash of food in there just in case you get stuck for a while. Somebody stays awake all the time, understood? Looks like we cleared out most of the problem here, but we still don't know enough about these things and how they move. Stay quiet, stay safe, wait for instructions to evacuate. Tyler nodded, his face grim. I appreciate what you did for us. Gunny clapped him on the shoulder. We're Marines, sir, he said. It's part of the job. Tyler led us out of the front door, and as the last Marine slipped out, the door shut behind us. Several locks clicked. Rude, Dakota muttered. Guess we'll just walk of shame ourselves out of here then, Sanchez said. Like it's your first, I said. Now shut the frick up. We're moving out. We resumed our southward trek, a line of pack-bearing Marines humping through an American suburb. Each of us had burned through about a mag of ammo, the saw gunners being the exception. We had dropped around 60 Zs. After about 8 minutes of march, Ferreira said what we were all thinking. Okay, now for real, we're gonna be quiet. Even Gunny had to laugh. Chapter 14. Highway to Hell. We hiked for about 4 hours, stopping every 50 minutes to hydrate and ease our feet. It was relatively flat ground, so we made good time for being stuck with our hooves. We weren't walking on the freeway itself. There was no way we could make any kind of good time with all the cars crowding it. Instead, we used the frontage road alongside or just hiked through the woods parallel. We need to find a Vic, Gunny said quietly as the squad chomped on scavenged granola bars. It's going to take forever moving like this. I sighed. Heard, Gunny. But the 270 is still locked up. Gunny scratched at the stubble on his chin. Sergeant Major would have a conniption seeing a senior Marine with scruff on his face. We might have to risk a call, he said. I chewed on that for a minute. Maybe if we used call signs, it won't get back to Murano? Or just say Marines need pickup at this location? Gunny shrugged. I imagine civilians have already tried that to get picked up. HQ's not going to send valuable air assets without confirmation of identification. Once they log into MAR admin to check our IDs, Murano's going to know we're alive. Ahead of us, Sloan slung his pack and rose to his feet. I checked my watch. Hey, I called out. You still got 4 minutes. Sloan shrugged. I'm good, Sergeant. Just draining my wank. Ha! Wank! Furry called out because he had the maturity of a 7-year-old. Sloan moved to the side of the road about 20 yards down, turned his back to us and unbuttoned. He did the lean to start the flow, and I looked away to give him at least some kind of modicum of privacy. Therefore, I didn't see Sloan die. The sound caught me first. Hard, harsh, like a table being shoved across a floor. I whipped around just in time to see a cloud of dirt speckled with grass and tinged scarlet explode into the air. Something bit into my cheek, and I swiped at it and stared at what had fallen into my glove. There was a tooth in my palm. Get cover! Hudson screamed, and all 6 of us dove off the little frontage road. I crawled as close to Mother Earth as I could get, mentally screaming Sloan's name over and over again. I heard the thud of its rotors then. I twisted and saw an Apache helicopter banking around. The chain gun on its nose whirred, and I threw myself toward a nearby shell station. 625 rounds a minute exploded at my heels, and I zagged out of the way as a line of dirt geysered into the air where I would have been. His visibility's crap now, I thought. I had about 4 seconds before the dust settled. Then my plan detonated as 2 rockets punched into the gas station I was eyeing and blew it into flaming shrapnel. Secondary explosions cooked off, and I stumbled in the opposite direction as the shock waves staggered me. Something howled nearby. Slaughter! I turned and saw Gunny Hudson. He and the other Marines hunkered beneath a concrete bridge that let a creek run beneath the frontage road. I booked it for them, my skin prickling as it waited for hot 30mm to shred it apart. The rotors whined, and I dropped. 15 feet beyond me, a line of pavement turned into a cloud of asphalt shrapnel. I rolled over, got a sight picture, and started firing. It's almost impossible to hit a chopper with a rifle. The distance makes it hard to gauge the lateral movement of the aircraft. Still, it was better than dying running. Behind me, the saws opened up, and this time I saw flecks of light sparking off the fuselage of the Apache. It tilted and slid to its right, but that screwed up its aim, too. Move! Gunny roared, and the 6 of us took off. Into the woods! I bellowed. We had to get this thing off of us. It tried to stop us. It knew what we were trying to do. A trio of rockets slammed into the woods ahead, blowing trees to splinters and shaking my heart in my chest. Dakota pivoted, dropped to one knee, and cracked off shot after shot. I saw the nose of the chopper twitch toward him, and I charged him. I hit him in the shoulder just as the Apache cut loose. Somehow, the volley went wide, and we stayed alive. Get up, Marine, I groaned, feeling stinging all over the back of my neck from the debris lodged in it. Then it had us. We were bunched up at the wood's edge. We realized it just as the Apache slid to its left, its chain gun already whirring. Gunny screamed for us to break apart, but it was too late. It was at that moment we knew we had effed up. But, as they say, God loves Marines. A missile slammed into the flank of the chopper and blew it apart in a massive fireball. A rain of flaming metal fell from the sky and crashed onto the 270, cooking off the fuel tanks of several cars trapped there, while the rotor itself spun off into the city, knifing into the roof of an HVAC shop. An F-22 roared overhead, banking into a long turn and disappearing from view. We lay frozen for a second, wondering what had just happened, when we heard a voice from the woods nearby. Marines. I'd expect to find you laying down on the job. He stood in the shadow of a nearby office building. He was in Army OCP pattern camis, with an M4 slung over his torso and a radio on his shoulder. We picked ourselves up from the ground. Gunny helped me up. You good? He asked. I nodded. Sloan? I asked, knowing the answer. He shook his head. Morano, I growled, and the sheer hatred I felt in that moment blanked out rational thought. Let's go, Hudson said. Worry about her later. We're going to settle that debt. The tightness in his voice betrayed his own fury. Quickly, jarheads, our visitor called out quietly. We got friendly critters coming to see what the party was about. The howl was getting closer. I could already see shadowy figures backlit by the flames on the 270. We jogged over to him. Turns out he wasn't Army. He was Air Force. And he was from Texas. Tech Sergeant John Russell, he drawled, offering a hand to Gunny. Air Force, combat controller. Gunny took his hand and gripped hard. It's good to see you, Tech Sergeant. What are you doing out here? Russell gestured to the burning heap on the 270. Hunting that. Langley pulled me from leave just after the collapse and sent me in to get live intel on the ground. Command called me up an hour ago and said a National Guard pilot with a history of disciplinary infractions and a gambling debt left his assigned patrol route a few hours ago. Looks to me like he was after y'all. Want to tell me why someone paid that much money to kill some crayon eaters? Gunny and I glanced at each other. Yeah, we might know what that's about, I said. Russell turned his head to the side and expertly squirted some dip spit through his teeth. I'd love to hear that story. First things first. Figure out right now how it was tracking you, because Apaches don't have great software on board. Somebody's feeding it your movements, Sergeant. Gunny looked at Alpha. Phones? He asked. They shook their heads. Ditched them, Sanchez said. Anybody wearing a Fitbit? Those stupid things had gotten more Marines in trouble than anything. I knew an intel guy who called them the Furbies of 2015. Alpha denied. Ferreira snapped his fingers. Got it, Sergeant. What's that, Furry? He tapped his shoulder. Morano put trackers in us, remember? Something about medical data? I closed my eyes. Mother. Okay. Dom, got your K-bar? Ferreira's eyes went wide. Wait, no. No. Let's get a corpsman. Let's find a doctor. Dude, let's at least find a vet. In the end, we got all 6 of the trackers out of our shoulders. Gunny took charge of it, slicing an X half an inch into the skin over the injection point, then digging the device out with pliers. I did him last. Unsurprisingly, Furry whined the most, even while biting down on the rifle strap we gave him. I hovered over him, ready to muffle his noise in case Zulu took an interest here. Sanchez swore something filthy in Spanish and took a swing at Gunny when he let her up. Russell stood watch while we fished the last of the trackers out, washed them out with peroxide, and slapped some bandages on. It took about a half an hour, and we tossed the devices into a puddle of water nearby. Let's ride, devils, Russell said quietly, and we moved off away from the trackers, away from the 270 that Morano now knew we were using. So you're a combat controller? I asked as we pushed into the woods. Yep, going on 10 years, he said. Wow, his Texas drawl was strong. I was from Texas myself, but it wasn't part of my personality like this. Just got back from the land of stands. Was going to kick it with some buddies on base yesterday. Then got word that people were chowing down on each other instead of hot dogs. Grabbed some gear and got out here to give some reliable intel to Big Air Force. The rogue chopper was just a bolo I got. Why was that thing after you anyway? Gunny filled him in over a few minutes. The controller sighed. Gotta be kidding me. Actual zombies. And you guys got to go see the mad scientist herself trying to erase Patient Zero? Wild. You call her in yet? She won't be connected to hitting us, Gunny said. She has a team of Blackwater types working for her. They're probably tasked with silencing us now. Makes sense, Russell said. But my comms are outside of the regular chain. Let me call an airlift in and get you guys to your people. Sergeant Slaughter? I glanced over and saw Lance Corporal Dakota. He looked tired, but there was a fire in his eyes. What's up? He let out a deep breath. We shouldn't go home yet. Gunny heard that and stepped closer. His voice was quiet and thoughtful. Why do you say that, Marine? He gestured back at Ferreira, Sanchez, and Dominguez. Sloan was talking to us just before. He stumbled over his words for a second, but found a stride again. Anyway, that thing with the Garmin family got him thinking, since he really liked saving those people. FEMA is communicating with all these civilians, right? There's got to be thousands of them, stuck in their homes while all these Zulus wander around. Sure, I said. They're trying to evacuate them to Kent. Yeah, Russell said. We looked at him. What? Gunny asked. Russell scratched under his chin. Well, there's another reason I'm out here. Part of my objective is to determine if evacuation is even viable prior to saturation bombing of the D.C. area. I blinked. Saturation bombing of civilians just to kill Zs? What's the point of that? Russell spread his hands. Pentagon and Capitol are dark. No comms coming out of them. You know how many national security vulnerabilities are in those places? If Russia or China manage to insert a team, we're going to have another giant mess once we get past this particular catastrophe. Plan is to bomb the area, possibly even using nuclear. Gunny let his breath out slowly. Wow, he said quietly. Russell pointed at Dakota. What's the kid's plan, though? Whoops. Chapter 15. Lance Criminals. Here's the thing, Dakota said. We were all seated around a phone on the ground. It was Russell's. Municipal, county, state, and federal services all have the ability to push notifications out to smartphones, right? I nodded. Sure. That's how we get Amber Alerts, flood warnings, etc. Right, Dakota said. So FEMA has access to everybody's phones and radios now. They basically control all communications in an emergency. Gunny nodded. Right. They'd be able to tell the people trapped in their homes when to make for the evac point. Dakota pointed at him. Not just that, Gunny. The phone itself also makes a really loud frickin' buzz when it gets those Amber Alerts, right? Yeah, I hate those things, Russell said. Give me my old flip phone with real buttons any day. Dakota drew a quick box in the dirt. Say this is DC. Say you want to get civilians trapped there over to Kent over here. He circled the east side of the box. But you got to get all the Z's out of the way first. Okay, I said. What I don't see is how you twips solve this problem. Hurtful, Ferreira said. Sanchez smacked him. Ow! Also hurtful. Jeez. Dakota nodded. Yeah. Activate those phone buzzers starting on the east side and move them west. Gunny leaned forward, his eyes lighting up. Outstanding, he breathed. Really good work. I like your thinking, kid, Russell said. You probably should have gone Air Force, though. I blinked, feeling lost. Sorry, I'm dumb. How's this help? Gunny pointed at the box. Move the wave of sound away from the bridge to Kent Island into DC proper. The Z's will follow the sound, leaving evac routes open for civilians. He tapped his chin. Doesn't feel like enough, though. Dakota nodded. Yeah, that's what I said. That's when Furry started talking. Oh, I said. I glanced at the Marine. So what'd you say? Anything smart? Always, he said. Look, I got dogs back home. They got this heightened sense of hearing, right? Stuff normal humans can't hear. I'm thinking Zulu operates the same way. I think if we hijack a tower on the west side of DC to emit a dog whistle and play it through the phones, they'll all go crazy trying to get it. I let out a breath. So what happens when they wreck the tower? Furry hesitated. Well, Sanchez cut in. His genius idea was that we defend the tower as long to keep the Z's occupied so that the civilians can run to evac. Silence fell. Finally, Russell said, Wow, they weren't kidding. You jarheads are crazy. I settled back on my haunches. To be clear, you guys think we should set up a giant zombie magnet in the middle of Washington, D.C. to attract every psycho cannibal in the area to us? I looked at Gunny. How many would we even be looking at? Gunny whistled low. Hundreds of thousands. Millions if we include Baltimore, Arlington, Quantico. He trailed off. Ferreira leaned forward, intense. Look, once we get past a couple of hundred, numbers don't exactly matter anymore, right? All we gotta do is hold that position for as long as humanly possible, sending out Dakota's weird little porno signal, then air evac out once we know we're losing. I mean, it's going to take Z some time to figure himself out once the signal dies, and that will at least let everybody on the east side of DC make it out to Kent before this Air Force guy's bombs drop. Hey, Russell said, that's not my plan. They ain't my bombs. You know what you're asking, right? Gunny said, looking at each of Alpha. You guys don't have combat experience, not like the sergeant and I have. It's real unlikely we'll get evacuated out of a mess like that. Dominguez fiddled with his rifle strap. Yeah, but we were talking. We really liked helping the Garments, Gunny. We really liked it. He looked me in the eye. We weren't running. We weren't sneaking. We were taking it to them, repelling Zulu by fire in close combat to save people who needed us. They needed us. Yeah, Sanchez said. And Marine Corps history, our history, is full of Marines being outnumbered, doing what needed to be done. What, are we going to be the first to break that? I glanced at Gunny, who held something like tears in his eyes. Every time, he said, I think we're done. That America's done. I hear some of you kids talking, and it restores my faith in the whole thing. He looked over at me. What do you think, Sergeant? I blew up my breath in a sigh. It's a good plan. But we're talking millions of Z's running right for us. Even if we could rig the buildings to blow, we're not going to hold them for more than a couple of seconds. They're going to rip that tower down in less than a minute, and we're screwed anyway. Not sure that kind of return is worth our lives. It's worth my life, Dakota offered. I'm not worth that much. Furry's not either, Sanchez said. He glared at her. What? Wherever are we going to find another Boston Marine with a big nose and a bigger mouth? Probably the same place they keep finding loud Latinas with 4 baby daddies, Furry said, and yelped as she hit him. Aight. Tech Sergeant Russell interjected. Y'all convinced me. I'll go. We looked at each other, then back at him. Convince you of what, Tech Sergeant? Gunny asked. Now I realize, Russell said in his thick drawl, that y'all Marines think being well read is like a really deep color of crimson. Yes, Dakota said immediately, and we chuckled. But this plan of yours has the whiff of history to it. They'd be talking about the Jarhead squad that evac DC for 50 years after this, like Dunkirk or something. Your point? I asked. Russell put a hand on his chest. So the Air Force wants a piece of this one. Dominguez said. Another M4 in the fight. That's what, another 0.15 seconds of life? Son, Russell said, giving him a sidelong look. He tapped the radio on his shoulder. Do you know what this is? Pez dispenser, Dom said immediately. Sex hotline, Furry offered. HQ, I need some AC. Stat, Dakota pantomimed. Russell looked at me. This what it's always like with these kids? I gave him a tired smile. You miss it when it's gone. I sliced a hand at my band of retarded miscreants. Enough. It's his radio. Ooh, Sanchez said in a caveman voice. Does Man of Air make fire too? They laughed until I said, it's the radio of an Air Force combat controller, which makes it the most lethal weapon available to infantry. That shut them up. I pointed up. Where do you think that F-22 Raptor came from, geniuses? Tech Sergeant Russell here has access to Langley's fighter bomber squadrons, if not the Navy squadrons sitting in the bay. The controller leaned forward. So here's the deal, he said quietly. Take me with you. Set me up with some good visual observation of your target area and a real comfy chair, and I'll bomb your little zombie problem back to hell. Ha! Furry said. He said chair. Russell glanced at them. Let me kick back and watch while they eat you. So, here's where we get to some dubious legality, Dakota said. Gunny grinned. Wouldn't be a Lance plan without some dubious legality, eh, Sergeant? I sighed. Is this lose stripes dubious legality or just a regular Article 15? Dakota put his hands on his hips. Look, I got a buddy stationed in the FEMA tent, Lance Corporal Kavanaugh. We were in the same dep, went to boot camp together, and wound up in 29 Palms for radio training at the same time. He can use the FEMA system to put out the signal we need. I chewed on that. Okay, that's kind of dubious. Seems like wrist slap stuff, though. Who gave us the Dietrich mission, Sergeant? Sanchez asked, spitting some dip juice into a bottle. That hit me. Crap, I said, looking at Gunny. Why are you saying that? What don't I know? Russell asked. We got our mission to Patient Zero in Fort Detrick from the deputy director of FEMA, a guy named Whitney. He got his orders from Morano, I said. That fat dweeb lives in that tent. It's where his power is. As soon as they find out what we're doing, Dakota slashed his hand across his throat, they'll cut the signal and leave us to hang. I'm very unhappy right now, I muttered. So, Dakota said, and stop me if I sound like Nicolas Cage. Oh, Furry said. I want to say it. I looked at them, not comprehending. Fine, you do it, Dakota said, irritated. Furry put on a serious face. I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. Still not getting it, guys, I said. Russell started laughing. Oh, man, he said. Y'all are too much. RE3s don't pull this kind of shenanigans. They don't even think like this. Y'all are on a whole nother level. He crouched down by Dakota and looked the kid in the eye. Y'all want to kidnap the deputy director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Am I right? My eyes widened and I looked at Dakota. Tell me Air Force is wrong. Tell me he just disrespects my beloved Corps and that my Lance Corporals would never float that kind of treasonous theory where I could hear it and be forced to report it. Sanchez shrugged. He's not kidnapping, Sergeant. He's borrowing. For like an hour, Furry put in. He's basically the president, I shouted. Something howled nearby, and Russell muttered, Careful, man. I dropped my voice. He's basically the president until they find the next guy in the chain. How are you going to kidnap basically the president? Dominguez just grinned. Sergeant Major hates him. Gunny chuckled. The sound startled me. They're right. Sergeant Major Hawk just needs to hear that his Marines are getting left high and dry. The problem will become solved. I chewed on my lip. So that's a Sag Madge problem? Gunny shrugged. Seems that way to me. He turned back to what was left of my squad. That is not our problem, though, is it, Dakota? Dakota looked glum. I glared at him. Okay, now what is it? He scritched at the fade on the back of his neck. Look, I can take Kavanaugh's signal and tie into a tower to draw the Z's to us. We're basically going to create an ambulance effect, where the signal continues propagating from phones and tablets all along the signal path to the tower we choose. The tower will become the source of the signal, the loudest thing around. It will be the difference between a crowd roaring at a concert and the guy on stage with the microphone. So what's the issue? I asked. The problem is the interface gear. The software in the towers is proprietary, but there's secret squirrel stuff that SIGINT and NSA types get access to that can override it. I need that gear to make this work. I glanced at Gunny. SIGINT? That's second radio, right? Gunny shook his head. We won't get them. Not in time, he said. Lejeune's got problems of its own. I looked at Russell. You're not carrying anything like that, right? He held up his hands. Don't look at me. I just put calls out. I don't listen to him. I sighed and turned away, but he went on. But, Russell ticked up a finger. What about Chacoms? My eyebrow quirked. What are you talking about? He tapped his chin. Whole reason Command wants to bomb this area is loss of national secrets to foreign espionage. We're looking at Ruskies, Chacoms, Israelis, all kinds of intel types that are probably just now starting to execute missions to steal vulnerable secrets. Dakota nodded, starting to get excited. Sergeant, if we find some of these guys and snag their gear, I can hook us up to a tower easy. I held up a hand. Hold up. You think we should ambush foreign spec ops teams in the middle of several million Zulus? Sounds like we're moving farther away from sanity here. Russell shrugged. Hey, y'all are the ones that wanted to make a bunch of noise. I'm just here to enable your terrible decision-making. I rubbed my eyes. I was starting to feel sore from the past few days, sleeping in the field for a week, then dealing with this crap. Can we at least get a lift? Russell called in a bird from local army. Apparently, he had dedicated transport for his mission, so it was no problem to get the combat controller and escort moved from point A to point B, which happened to be the United States Capitol. It took a while to decide where we were going. Trying to anticipate the movements of foreign espionage agents who might be trying to steal national secrets in the middle of the zombie apocalypse proved to be a matter of opinion. Finally, Gunny chopped a hand through a shouting match between Ferreira and Sanchez. All right, that's it, Ferreira snarled. Look, you can't assume they don't know more than us. They're probably looking underground or some shit. Gunny thumped him on the back of the Kevlar. I said lock it up, Marine. He looked at each one of us. Lowest common denominator. Right now. Where's the first place you would go? Don't think tactically. Don't think anything special. Where would you go first? Each Marine said the same thing, and I had to reluctantly agree. The Potomac flashed beneath us, the sunlight sparking off of the water. The Black Hawk hung close to the surface, throwing up chop in the river. I sat in the door, my legs hanging over space as I surveyed the ruins of D.C. I never liked the place. Too crowded, too full of altered history. Didn't look any better now. Crowds of Z's moved through the streets. They turned as one as our chopper blitzed past, their red eyes gleaming. I couldn't hear them over the thumping rotation of our bird's blades, but I saw them starting to run. I tapped the side of my headset and opened a channel to Russell. What's the touchdown plan? Russell stood on the other side of the chopper, one hand on his rifle as he hung onto the handle above him. His mic clicked in my ear. Warrant officer here has been running transport missions all day. He says pilots have started buzzing the hordes to get them moving in a direction, then doubling back to drop off teams in the new quiet zones. Then the chopper buzzes the horde again to keep them moving in the wrong direction. I squinted at him. That work? He shrugged. Most of the time. Sometimes the team is stupid and starts taking shots. Turns the Z's around real quick. I nodded. Not stupid it is, then. That would be optimal, yeah. So buzzing the horde was exciting. We were getting close to the Capitol. I could see the Smithsonian flash past, several memorials, the green grass of the Capitol lawn before everything swung around. All we got from the pilot was, "Hang on, crayon eaters," before the Black Hawk dropped like a stone. My heart jumped into my throat as we went weightless for a terrifying few seconds before the chopper leveled out suddenly. The door gunners opened up with their chain guns as the Black Hawk slewed around, and I saw the massive crowd on the lawn and in the street. Sprays of black gouted into the air as the miniguns played across the horde's flank. "Got their attention," the pilot said, and then the chopper jerked forward, almost unseating me. Even though I was hooked in, I still grabbed for the handle next to me. Sanchez swore in terror, forgetting Gunny next to her, and Furry laughed uncontrollably as he slammed around from the bird's insane maneuvers. "Independence Avenue coming up in 3-0," the pilot drawled, but I could still hear the tension in her voice. "Thank you for flying Air Army. Even in a world with no other options, using us was still a choice." The bird banked left, and buildings flashed past my vision. This was the double back. "Get ready to go, Marines!" I shouted. Alpha sat up, unhooking seatbelts and grabbing gear. A square building zipped under us. I caught sight of a sign, the Cannon House office building. The pilot was breaking line of sight to the horde, dropping us off, then racing back out to get them off us. The chopper dropped, crunching into the pavement and jamming my spine. "I highly recommend you not wait for the aircraft to come to a complete stop," the warrant shouted. Didn't have to tell us twice. We spilled out from the chopper's sides, Dakota falling on his face in his zeal to get out. I didn't ding him for it. It was his first aerial insertion. We all did it at some point. Tech Sergeant Russell snagged the loop on his pack and jerked him to his feet. I charged for the side of the Cannon House office building, letting the Marines see me and follow. Behind us, the chopper rocketed back into the sky, arcing around the side of the building and tearing off west. With the thunder of the bird's rotors out of our ears now we could hear the howl. It was worse. Before, we heard the sound of hundreds, and that was bad enough. I'd had dozens screaming in my face back at Dietrich. It's this awful, gasping roar that sounds like a turbine sucking in air combined with a tiger growl. That was nothing compared to ZC. We slammed into the side of the building, trying to reorient ourselves with the sheer wrongness of the ambient sound. A city should sound like cars, horns, shouting, and the muted roar of people talking. Not this time. Not here. It was thousands. It was like the howl itself keened through the choked streets, tossing trash with its force. Cars were everywhere on the road, turned sideways, flipped over, windows shattered or cracked open like cans of sardines. Alarms sounded in the distance, and they would ring until batteries fried or their speakers fried. Until batteries died or their speakers fried, because no one was coming to shut them off. The howl echoed from the sides of the buildings, rebounding wildly so we couldn't tell where it came from. My eyes darted everywhere as I ran forward in a crouch, tracking the movement of a scrap of newspaper, a plastic bag. I looked behind, and that's when I saw Ferreira's face. The kid was pale, his eyes wide. He was not okay. I glanced at the others. It was the same. Gunny Hudson had a scowl on his face, as if he was trying to work out a problem. I held up a fist before we crossed the threshold of the corner, and the squad melted into the side of the building. The road we were on, C Street Southeast, turned onto New Jersey Avenue Southeast, which ran straight into Independence Avenue, the street running alongside the Capitol. "What's up, Sergeant?" Gunny asked. I glanced meaningfully at the younger enlisted. "Wait a minute, Marines," I said. "Take a breath. Adjust." Furry nodded, taking deep breaths through his nose and out his mouth, and Dakota took a swig from his hydration system. Dominguez fingered a cross wrapped around his neck, muttering a prayer. Unbidden, a faint smile touched my lips. "Hey." They looked at me, pale and jittery. "You guys wanted this." Sanchez grunted in scorn. "Yeah, we keep signing up for stupid crap." Was gonna say crap, Gunny. "Sure you were. See me COB for your counseling," Gunny muttered, and quick grins flashed all around. I pointed a knife hand at them. "Same rules, Marines. I know it's weird. It sounds like hell itself out there." Dom nodded, still clutching that cross. "But we're Marines, and hell's where we regroup." Furry nodded, some color coming back to his face. "Devil dogs," he muttered. "Any of this for me?" Russell whispered, and I caught the look in his eye. He was trying to settle the younger enlisted, too. "Why?" Sanchez asked. "You need a hug, Air Force?" I'm not saying no to some sappy on sappy action, Russell said, and I saw tension bleed out of my Marine's shoulders at the familiar back and forth. I'd lock it up, I said. Chopper probably dragged every Zulu after it that it could, which is a lot on this open ground in front of the Capitol. Keep low. We know their eyesight sucks, so keep quiet too. Do not fire your weapons unless you absolutely have to. Careful when you open doors. 1 or 40 of them might be stuck in there. I looked each Marine in the eye. We don't know what we're going to run into here. Might be nothing at all. Might be every foreign intelligence asset on the East Coast. Stay frosty and show them why we're the best. Their hands gripped their weapons without shaking now. Hoorah, Sergeant, Sanchez said, and the rest repeated after her. I circled my hand for assemble, and 6 Marines and an airman moved out into overthrown D.C. All right, I think that's all we're going to read for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry I can't keep the accent straight. I don't know what's wrong with me right now. I'll fix it if they have me read the audiobook. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening or day or whenever normal people watch this kind of stuff. You guys enjoy. Later.